Hello and welcome to the Banker's Tech Talk video series. I'm Joy Macknight, Deputy and Technology Editor at The Banker, and I'm joined by Ruth Wandhofer, a fintech industry expert, to discuss what will be the technology trends and developments in the banking industry in 2019. Ruth, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joy.
So that's the big question. What do you think are going to be the big tech trends for 2019, specifically for the banking industry?
So if we look at Europe to start with, I mean, obviously we have tech trends and regulatory trends. We've still got the PSD2 coming into the fore with the whole secure customer authentication piece, where we're not quite sure whether all of the vendors are geared up to actually deliver. We have seen the open banking experience phase 1 in the UK, with quite a few hiccups still on the integration piece. I think there's a lot more coming to the fore this year, and hopefully a lot more integration and seamlessness that makes the customer journey easier. And I think when we look at the broader tech trends, obviously data analytics, artificial intelligence are still key themes, but also data security. So anything around cryptographic solutions, interesting patents that really create data security to give that additional difficulty for cyber attackers to hack, but also to be a little bit more future looking on the quantum computing phase is something that's going to be very important and an area that I think should be a lot more investigated and researched and invested in. The other piece, of course, is blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So crypto I mentioned, but we do start seeing more viable applications of blockchain and also a lot of focus from the financial industry to actually execute some of these as opposed to just testing things.
Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about open banking / PSD2. Obviously, it's been a bit of a slow start. What needs to happen for it to really take off?
Well, the open banking came in really as an idea to open up the banking market and to allow these third parties to compete a lot more with banks. Third parties, all these agile little companies, are really, really good at delivering quick tech solutions, improvements, new products and delivery, while some of the banks are obviously a bit slower in terms of being able to adapt. They sit on legacy IT often, and they also have very different program and testing time frames. So sometimes that friction can create a bit of an issue in the customer journey, where maybe in the past, if a third party was directly dealing with the consumer, it would be a very frictionless experience. But now going across the banking industry, it can sometimes be a bit more difficult, customers being handed over to a bank, and that could actually create a bit of a negative customer journey initially. So I think it's up to the banks to become more agile and focus on their IT and API capability and integration to make it work end to end in a better way.
Okay. And crypto assets, another hot topic over the last couple of years. What do you think it will take for central banks to release their own digital assets? How far along on that journey are we?
Yeah, so central banks around the world have been actually quite avidly experimenting with blockchain technologies for different applications, for settlement coins, for RTGS system elements. And a lot more research is coming out now in the last year or so in terms of central bank digital currency, which doesn't preclude that it has to be a very specific technology. It just means that central banks should really be thinking about what becomes their role in a digital future when physical cash has been phased out. Arguably, that will take time, and there are lots of risk factors to consider in this. But we know about Sweden and Uruguay and other countries that are actually trying to actively phase out cash. They already have lower cash. And therefore, the question becomes, is there a role for the central bank directly to issue a digital token or currency? Or is it more for the commercial banking sector to do all of this? That research is ongoing. Some experiments are live or becoming live. But overall, the Bank of International Settlement has very recently issued a research report on the fact that people are approaching it with caution. It doesn't mean only because a certain technology is available that it requires that there's a need to implement it. But I do think over time, as technology matures and the role of central banks becomes reassessed, there is a valid point of thinking about a retail, digital or crypto solution in that space, even as a backup when we think about all the issues we see in terms of threats to the commercial banking sector.
Okay. And blockchain, another hot topic. Do you think 2019 is going to be the year of the blockchain?
Well, I mean, we thought every year would be the year of the blockchain, and we're still kind of waiting for it. I guess when we sort of move across the crypto and blockchain journey, I mean, obviously 2017 was where people discovered Bitcoin exists, a bit late in the day. 2018 was the year of ICOs. This year seems to be the year of tokenization and tokenizing securities, for example, to allow them to be traded on the blockchain. So we have a number of initiatives as well as live scenarios where people are already actively trading security tokenized assets on on the blockchain. And we also do see quite some active engagement in the banking industry in terms of the correspondent banking information network, but also looking at other projects where a blockchain may be relevant. Most importantly, it's always identify what your business issue is, then look at the available technology before you start saying that blockchain is the answer. And we have learned that in the last few years. But I do believe that we will see more actual live projects. And an interesting area that one should never forget is anti-money laundering in that space, whether it's security assets, digital currency. And that's something that even the EBA and ESMA have been calling for recently. So we may see also more regulatory attention in that space.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your insights, Ruth.
Please do.